Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome. This is Jill Troderman with Feeding the Family, streaming from SantaCruzVoice.com in Santa Cruz, California. Today, I have a fabulous guest, Nori Hudson. She is a board-certified holistic nutritionist. We are talking about at what age and stage is it best to influence your kids' dietary preferences? How can you influence whether your children will become good, healthy eaters who like a variety of all kinds of foods and minimize the chances that you will have kids that are stubborn, fussy, and picky? Because trust me, that is a challenging situation. So we're going to be discussing tips, strategies, foods to introduce to your children. And even if your kids are a little bit older now, there are a lot of ways that you can still positively share with your kids how to eat a healthy diet. So, reversing picky eating and cultivating healthy eating in children is on the rise. I mean, let me just say, picky eating is on the rise, and cultivating healthy eating is also on the rise because that is what I like to do. So, Nori Hudson believes in the power of real foods to help our bodies heal and attain optimal health. Nori has been advocating the whole foods approach for over 2 decades now, motivating her clients and her community to form meaningful relationships with how they nourish themselves. And she also shares her vast knowledge through lectures, seminars, community workshops, and working with clients privately. She's also had a stint working in the minimum security of San Quentin. That is pretty intense. But guess who her biggest advocate is? Her child. I totally believe that. Nori also enjoys in her spare time working on yoga, gardening, hiking, and playing the violin and viola. Well, we are just absolutely delighted to welcome you, Nori, into the studio. We had a few minutes where I didn't hit the record button. Oops. But Nori basically just said hello, and then we got right into what is picky eating. So please join us for the rest of this really interesting conversation. Welcome, Nori.
And they're selective and restrictive in their food intake, maybe not making as many choices or refusing new foods or having strong food preferences, and maybe even changing their consumption of things. But apparently, for most people, it may level off around 6 years old. But in some, it does persist. So I think the reason it's on the rise, which, I did a little bit of research on this. It turns out 50% of Americans do consider themselves to be picky eaters. And I came up with about 6 factors. I'm sure there are many more that may be affecting why it's on the rise. One is there are more medical issues. We know that chronic illness has risen quite a bit. Allergies, digestive, and autoimmune conditions, food not digesting well, or maybe the child doesn't feel that food is safe because they've had a bad reaction. So that's one. The second is we know that there's been a rise in neurodevelopmental disabilities, and with that comes tactility issues and other eating problems. So, and anyone who has had a child with autism knows this, and it's a whole set of skills needed for feeding them. And then the third thing is temperaments. Children or people who may be anxious or moody or nervous may be more likely to be picky. The fourth is complicated, and I don't want anyone to feel guilty or shamed or worried about me saying things about parenting styles, because it turns out both authoritarian and permissive styles correlate to picky eating. Mind you, children are watching their parents and copying behaviors even in the eating arena. So if the parents are picky, the children will be also. Another behavior of parenting style that I noticed with a particular client
hold on. Let's slow that down a little bit, because you just said a bunch of really important factors. So some are, we have those kids who are just going to be normally sensitive, right?
Yeah.
And then there are conditions in which their environment is. So that's parenting. And I know you just mentioned that you don't want to offend anybody, but let's pick the picky part about. Let's pick it apart a little bit. So you mentioned authoritarian and permissive. Can you share what that is? I could share what that is also.
You can.
So permissive
Sure.
parenting might be more less discipline, more casual approach. And authoritarian might be a little bit more punitive, a little bit more of a heavy-handed approach. Whereas authoritative, well, that's authoritarian, and authoritative might be more of the balance. Is that accurate in your mind?
I think, yeah, they're all shades of something for sure. I do agree with your definitions. And I think in the authoritarian or authoritative, maybe, and we may have grown up with this method, we were told to eat what's on the plate, and that's it. We're not going to get any choices. Where with permissive, there might be more catering. Oh, if you don't like this, I'll make you something else, and it becomes a cafeteria model. So that's another style of sharing food with children. It gives them wiggle room, and they may take advantage of it and therefore not try new foods, even when offered in a very palatable way.
So what happens now when, so that's the parenting styles. What can parents do if they're aware that they're sitting down with their kids and they're noticing that their children are having picky eating? Well, those are more the solutions, but let's go even back a little bit more about in the womb. Can you share a little bit about how children's palates might be influenced in the amniotic fluid and even back into when they're breastfed? They're highly influenced by different flavor profiles, right? Sour, bitter.
Yes, they've done studies and found that food preferences may even occur at 2 to 3 months in utero by what the mother is eating. The amniotic fluid is being tasted by the fetus. And they did studies to show that after the birth, the child who was exposed to, say, mom's drinking carrot juice during pregnancy was more likely to turn towards the carrot juice.
Right.
So it starts pretty early, which is interesting to see. But we also have seen changes in the microbiome, which does have a very big influence on taste preferences. And I looked and found there are numerous studies about that.
Now, is that the microbiome in the infant, or would that be in the microbiome of the mother who's carrying the child?
Could be both.
Okay.
It turns out that, C-sections, which are 5 times higher than they were when I was born in 1950, breastfeeding took a dip until 1970 where there was a resurgence. But having a lack of diversity in the diet of the mother and her exposure to processed foods, and then glyphosate, this ingredient in Roundup, which has contaminated our food supply, contributes to dysbiosis, which means that we're favoring more pathogenic bacteria. And then antibiotics and other medications could also affect the microbiome. So we see that taste preferences, the gut microbiome will influence the host diet selection behavior. That will be both mother and child.
Isn't that just totally mind-blowing? So these little microbiomes the microbes, you might say they're benign, neutral, or bad. I don't know if that's the right term, bad, pathogenic. Mm-hmm. So they have a mind of their own, don't they?
Well, it turns out the microbiome is the DNA that we collectively call ourselves, including our bacteria in and on us, determines us. They are in the majority, and they're tuning us so we will be good hosts. They outnumber us in terms of DNA.
Right, and so if we're feeding our bad bacteria with a lot of sugar and the mom's eating a lot of ultra-processed foods, those microbiomes, the microbes are going to call more for that. So maybe that child will, right?
Yeah, it can tune things in the direction to not only make the mother influence the child because her eating behaviors have changed, but the child will be influenced and be more subject to illness as well.
Right, when they're born.
The vulnerability, yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting that way. So the amniotic fluid, the microbiome is a huge important thing. And when does the issue of super tasters come in?
I missed that. When does the issue of what come in?
Well, so let's say, the child's born after the mother has had, X, Y, or Z diet. The mom delivers a baby. They start feeding the kid. Her dietary influences when she's breastfeeding is definitely going to influence the kid. And then when this child starts to begin eating solid foods, that's a really important time to start being really diverse with what you're providing your kid, with the children. For instance, I read a study where introducing vegetables at an earlier age will increase that child's likelihood of enjoying vegetables later on.
You are right on. And that's something that also depends on whether the family is bringing home Brussels sprouts and eating it themselves. But it's the way it's introduced as well, because we find that when children are rewarded for trying new foods, the next time they're offered it, they don't like it as much as those who were not rewarded for having tried the new food.
Right, and so that really has to do with a lot about the human psychology. So what's happening in that case? The child is then looking to the parent for reinforcement.
Total. It's an external validation, which could be a setup, it turns out, for possibly eating disorders. It's interesting, Jill, just think about it, how when we praise children for doing naturally occurring functions like eating and pooping, it's odd that we set them up to not read their own cues and understand within themselves what they need and want, register their own hunger and satiety. They're looking for that external validation.
So this is something that parents actually need to teach their child to tune into themselves using their intuition. So what would a parent say to a kid? Like, are you full now? Do you like this food? Is there certain language a parent can use when they're not setting their kid up for the reward of pleasing their parent, or in certain cases wanting to upset their parent, because kids have a lot of control, and there's so many parents who completely lose it at the dinner table because they're concerned that their kid's not eating enough. So some parents might panic and then get super forceful, right? Like, you can't leave the table without eating this food, and then other parents are like, I can't deal, I'm just going to let him eat mac and cheese all day long. I don't really care, because they don't want to fight with their kid. But there is a sweet medium in between, encouraging the child to have their own joy and experience with food for energy, and that food runs them, that it's not a novelty, you could say.
I see you've thought a lot about this too, and I know we can go on for a couple hours on this.
I know.
I think I'd like to bring up something that Ellen Satter said in her book, How to Get Your Kids to Eat But Not Too Much.
Okay.
And I do think this holds even for the neurodivergent child. Parents decide what, where, and when food will be eaten, and the children decide whether and how much. So I think if we use, say, a ground rule, don't bring home anything you wouldn't mind your child overeating. That's a good rule. Make sure it's wholesome and whole.
This is great.
Avoiding processed foods.
So don't bring it into the house. I had a guest on, a nutritional psychologist lady, and it's the accessibility to these foods.
Yeah.
That we're going to binge out on, so don't even bring it into the house. Okay. Love that. What was the next one? Sorry, I get excited about this topic.
No, it's perfect. I'm really glad to hear you affirm that. And so that means that what you're eating is decided by the parents. It's the most important job parents have, to build that child's body for life. In other words, if you bring home bad food, like, the pigs bringing home straw to make their house, the house will not stand. The house will not withstand the storms and the illnesses, as well as if it were built with the bricks, which are the solid, nutritious, nutrient-dense foods. So important. And then the parents decide where. You don't want your kid eating all over the house. Sitting down at the dinner table actually has more than just a food-related benefit. It's talking to your child and having a conversation in a relaxed way. And then when, because having regular meals, especially after breastfeeding, because children, I think, on demand, should be able to get nourishment as babies. But after that, to know, okay, we're going to have lunch now, and we'll have dinner now, and there's a predictability, and children start getting regulated. The children will decide if they want to eat and how much. So say your child says, I'm not hungry, and you're saying, come to the table, we're going to have dinner. I'm not hungry. You can say, well, just come. And it has worked, especially even with my son, where he came to the table, wasn't particularly hungry, but he saw that we were eating, and he started smelling what we were eating, and he started getting interested in eating. So I separated the come to the table from the eating, and he chose on his own to eat. Children are hunger as a guide for whether they're going to eat, and they won't starve themselves willingly.
So encouraging the family unit to sit down together at the dinner table.
And eat the same thing, not go to the freezer or the refrigerator and get out something they can each microwave and then sit at the table and be on social media while they're all supposedly eating a meal together. Nothing is together, not even the food is the same, and they're not cooking.
Right.
Yeah.
And this obviously, I mean, when I was a kid, I guess the worst thing we had were TV dinners where we could sit in front of the TV. But I think now our exposure to social media and all the electronics just adds 10,000 more layers of complexity to what parents have to deal with now.
Totally.
Even with my girlfriends, when they bring out their phones at dinner, I'm like, put the phones away. Let's just enjoy each other. It's stressful for me when I see the phones come out at the table for some reason. So the kids need to be regulated, and this is sacred time. So everyone sits down to the table, and they're having the same food. Why is that important? I mean, not only just that you don't want to be a short order cook because Johnny doesn't like this and Susie doesn't like that, but why is it important that everybody kind of share the same foods? There must be some psychology to that.
There is some psychology to it. Children, as I said earlier, are watching their parents eat. And there's a safety factor to that.
Okay.
Parents or caregivers, you're seeing someone else eat a food. It tells you subconsciously that is a safe food to eat. Mm. So that's why we like to have them be parents modeling for their children what would be safe to eat. The children, if you use the baby-led weaning model, will be using food more like a toy. Not for nourishment initially, if they're sitting at the table but not eating what everyone else is eating. They've already had their breast milk. Mm-hmm. But it's exercising the choice of textures, flavors, eye-hand coordination, exploring a gag reflex, learning to chew and move their mouth in certain ways, and develop confidence in their own instincts. So the food is not for nourishment initially, but it's allowing them to have choice, most importantly, which I think will avert picky eating from the very beginning. That's one of the keystones, I think, for helping parents around the bend. Now, I know there are parents who are on this call, and they're already with children above the age of toddlerhood, where solid foods are being introduced. But if they're going to have children, or they have plans to have children, this might be a really good book to look at, Baby-Led Weaning. And then the food, what to offer the children, may also be key. I just want to mention another book. It's called the Nourishing Traditions Book of Baby and Toddler Care. And if you offer nutrient-dense foods, that may, because of the nutrition in the food, giving zinc, magnesium, sulfur, and iron, will avert some of the picky eating, because if you eat processed foods, you're still looking for all the nutrition. But if you're eating nutrient-dense foods, you're getting what you need, and you will be less likely to be eating or veering off the path and eating poor quality food or becoming picky. Their first foods are egg yolk, liver, raw milk, bone marrow, fish eggs, butter, cod liver oil, avocado, raw mashed tropical fruits like banana, fermented foods, and cooked pureed veggies as they get older.
Wow, I wonder how many parents are starting off with that list. Maybe half of the list. Like maybe people can do the avocado, mashed potatoes, I think you said butter? Did you say butter?
Butter, yeah.
Some good oils. Maybe some fermented food, but I really don't think parents are like, yeah, I'm just going to give my kids some sauerkraut. So, but that is so important to get those taste buds to feel what that sour taste feels like and what the bitter. So, right, like the sulfur foods are all the broccoli, the brassicas, and that's so important.
Yes.
Okay, Nori, I love that you said when you're talking about maybe some deficiencies in nutrient intake because of the lack of diversity in the diet. For instance, you mentioned zinc. I don't know if you mentioned selenium. Maybe some omega-3 essential fatty acids are missing because the kids aren't having that diverse diet. I'm always thinking that kids who aren't getting a full spectrum of their essential fatty acids, which are the omega-3s, the fish oils, flax, walnuts, and then the essential proteins, the essential amino acids, that could lead to mental health issues, right? Like depression and anxiety, and then that exacerbates the picky eating.
Indeed. If someone has something like anorexia nervosa, the first nutrient they give them is zinc because it affects the development of taste buds and taste acuity.
That's fascinating.
So that's an interesting thing.
Isn't that so interesting?
Yeah. So babies can take oysters, at the right age, herring, which both have high amounts of zinc. Right. Another one is magnesium. Interesting. Magnesium activates bitter taste, which is, wow. That means that all whole foods that have bitter magnesium in them would be things they would be picky about. But without it, it would mean their blood sugar regulation would be off, their brain chemistry might be off. And yet there are these foods like, grains, avocados, nuts and seeds, dark green vegetables, which have so much nutrition in them, and yet they may be the very foods that kids avoid. How to get around that bitter taste? Right. By the way, that's adding more salt and adding more fat. Okay, and
this is great because I want parents and any adult, because I think I do know. I'm not mentioning names, anyone, but I think I have some friends out there who don't like their vegetables. So, I mean, right? Because picky eating can go into adulthood. So, right? So hold that thought, Nori. Okay, I have to play a really quick commercial, and let's circle back to that exact point when we get back, okay?
Okay.
All right, hold on, and we will be right back.
Okay.
Okay.
And at Treehouse Dispensary, we use it to build community. In addition to dispensing cannabis and education, Treehouse hosts First Friday events every month that feature our community's local artists, makers, and activists. If you're 21 plus, join us at 3651 Soquel Drive every First Friday from 5 to 8 p.m. to enjoy the work of local artists and musicians, find one-of-a-kind gifts, and learn more about the top cannabis products in California. See you soon.
The weather will change. Knox Roofing here. We all remember the story of the three little pigs. We all know the third pig hired Knox Roofing to do his roof. Every day he crawls into his home knowing no wind, no earthquake, fire, or even the big bad wolf can hurt his house. The weather will change for the good and sometimes not so good. Have a Knox roof installed on your home, and one thing you can be certain of, good security. I promise you that. The number to call is 461-0634. Thanks, folks.
Satisfy your hunger with a fresh, prepared, twice-daily grab-and-go sushi you'll find waiting for you at Sushi Market Sprouts, 2 blocks from the beach at 300 7th Avenue in Santa Cruz. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
Hello, I'm Junko, and I look forward to serving you at the Sushi Market Sprouts.
Satisfy your hunger right now with the delicious ramen and sushi you'll find waiting for you at Kaito. Easy in and out location in the Capitola Mall food court. Special orders welcome. Fresh, delicious, and oh so good.
This is Koji. I'm looking forward to seeing you at my restaurant, Kaito.
You have to move now. No problem. Store your stuff at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. 24/7 security. Drive it to your door and store it at Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
You sold your motorcycle to a friend in Fresno and need to deliver it. Well, Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom has motorcycling car trailers ready to go. Easy off Highway 1 on Airport Boulevard by the airport. Anbar Self-Storage and U-Haul in Freedom.
Okay, folks. Hello.
I'm back.
Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So,
Jill,
hello.
I wanted to bring up something
Yes.
It's really interesting. It's about what is called super tasters.
Yes.
There's actually a test for it to see if you have a certain gene that predisposes you to identify bitter tastes in everything.
Yes, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Okay, so what does that mean if you're a super taster? You overtaste bitter or undertaste it?
You overtaste bitter. And it's not just in humans. It's actually in all vertebrates. The gene is TAS2R38. And 25% of people are super tasters. And in the autism community, it's more like 87%. That may explain a lot.
Wow.
So as I said earlier, adding more salt and fat can make a big difference.
Okay.
And then you might ask the question, why, if this is an important thing to have bitter foods in our lives, why would this gene persist?
Why?
Because
why?
Yeah, bitter is to tell us something is not safe.
Sure.
Like it's a toxin, and it's a safety signal, and it's an innate reflex that we all have. But it's over time that we get accommodating to that taste, and we can go forward and enjoy coffee, chocolate, radicchio, endive, dandelion greens, and other things that have bitter flavors, because over time those can be accommodated if we are willing to try it 7 to 20 times.
7 to 20 times, everybody. I think Nori just dropped a little data there to your kids. Okay, so if this bitter gene is adaptive for our survival, people who have that gene, the 25%, can increase the palatability of that with adding fat to all of these vegetables that you're talking about. Mm-hmm. Right? Like artichokes and all the dark leafy greens that we know are so incredibly important. So adding more salt and just seasoning to make it more yummy tasting for them, right? And maybe even sauteing it, cooking it down, not eating it raw, perhaps.
Yeah, that's another way of doing it. If people are already realizing that they don't like certain foods because they're bitter and they're now adults, the one bite experiment could be really helpful. So say you go to a restaurant where something's really well prepared and your dining companion is having something that you previously never wanted to eat ever again. And you just say, well, could I just have one bite and just taste it and see, it's okay. It feels different in my mouth. My memories of that are now changed because I now have tried it and it tastes okay. It's not terrible. I'm probably not going to order a whole portion, but I now am opening the door to allowing that food in my variety of choices now.
I love that. Yeah, I was just thinking about like a giant bowl of arugula salad could be really intense for some people. You and I know how important bitters are for increasing digestive power, right? Stimulating protein digestion and hydrochloric acid and all that stuff. Also, It's great for liver detoxification, all the sulfur foods. Now,
all of that.
Right? All of that. So people who have adults who have eating sensitivities, the one bite rule, does that apply to kids? Because we were sharing before about how important it is to not overstress your children and let them really manage their intake, but the parents are obviously providing the food. So would you do like, hey, Johnny, everyone's going to take one bite, or how do you address that then at the dinner table in real life?
There's a woman who's had 9 children, and she wrote an article in the Wise Traditions Journal, which can be found at the WestonAPrice.org website. And in that, she talks about using the one bite to be polite method.
Okay.
Which helps the child try it, at least try it. You don't know if you don't like it until you try it.
Okay.
And then they have the choice at certain ages, if they chew it and it still doesn't agree, they can spit it out politely. And then take a glass of water or drink of water to overcome the bitterness or whatever flavor they don't like in their mouth and move on to the next item on the plate. Okay. I've heard mixed feelings about rewarding with the dessert. Like, you have to try something for us to give you a dessert. There are 2 methods that I've found. One is put the dessert on the plate. Sugar can be a stimulant for appetite. it's not a big dessert, and it's certainly a healthy dessert, but let it be part of the meal so it's not separated. Because then the temptation is, oh, well, I'm going to make you overeat, and then overeat again just to get your dessert. To me, that's the wrong message. You're overriding your own satiety signals. The other method is, yes, you can have the fruit that we're all having, but you need to at least have that one bite to be polite. And so the child is motivated, especially at a large dinner table, that everyone else is eating the fruit by now, and they're still stuck with something on their plate they still haven't tried a bite of. So I think that's an idea about the dessert. But the other thing is, Jill, I think when the children get to a certain age, let them serve themselves. Again, it's allowing choice. Let them put what they want on their plate and learn not to be wasteful. And that means that try a taste of everything. And if there's enough left over, they can go back for the favorite item for seconds or thirds, depending on what's available.
I really like that. I actually never heard that, because I think most parents will just plate it up and put the plates on the table. But I guess family style, you just put all the bowls or the platters on the table, and then everyone can just pass them around. I think this is great, because then the kid can really see like how much they want. And really, kids don't need to eat that much in quantity, right?
They don't.
And we don't want to encourage overeating. And I like the thing about the sugar, to not make it such a... I really always had an issue with bribing with dessert. I really did. I never thought that was a strategy, but putting it on the plate, it's kind of like, yeah, it's there if you want to eat it. But everyone's going to eat their lasagna, and they're going to eat their soup, and the dessert's there. So it kind of takes that excitement away, maybe.
Yeah. But you brought up lasagna. I want to mention another thing. There are children who really don't like their food mixed.
Oh,
like
yes.
Stir fry.
Right.
Or it would not work. You'd want to have this separated on the plate. So it may be for the family system to work well is to have things separated, and then with the children's help, experiment with putting things together so they can get involved. I don't know if you've seen that wonderful, darling cooking show online. It's called Cooking with Levi, but it's a 3-year-old who's cooking with his dad in the kitchen.
Oh my goodness, that's so cute. No, I haven't seen that.
He's chopping things up. He's learning how to chop and fold his fingers so that he doesn't cut his fingers.
Oh my gosh, that's great.
Stir. He's wearing goggles so he doesn't get any, fat in his eye. He's tasting things midway. He has a tomato break every once in a while. It's really a charming way for children to learn, and I highly recommend that, even watching it with your children.
Now that you
engaged.
Okay, Nori, now that you brought up the goggles, I did see a little clip of a dad, and he had his kid on a stool, and he had goggles on because they were like frying up something, and I'm like, that is so brilliant, because it's not like,
That's
be
Cooking
afraid.
With Levi.
Cooking with Levi, yay! All right, let's support those folks. And I think that's another thing that studies have shown, or culturally we know, getting the kids really physically involved in the kitchen, putting their hands on the things, right?
Total.
Introducing
Gardening.
your kids to the knife, and like a blunt knife. It doesn't have to be a super sharp one, and then it tells the kid that I trust you, and you can trust yourself to make good choices and to participate. And so that's really great. So Cooking with Levi.
These are life skills. My son is grateful that I helped him develop some of those life skills that now serve him. He's 31 now.
Yeah, no, what did he learn from you? Because growing up with nutritionist parents, how fun is that? My kids did fine too. My kids are really good, healthy, normal eaters, thank God. So sounds like your boy too. What's your son's name? I don't know if you want to share.
Ilian.
Ilian? Lovely.
Iliyan. We adopted him from a Bulgarian orphanage, and he ate everything except cucumber, parsley, and asparagus. But then one time he was sitting at the table and seeing us enjoy our asparagus with mayonnaise or something. And he said, "Why do you guys eat that?" And I said, "Well, because it tastes so good." And I said to him, having been in nutrition school around this time, I said, it probably takes about 7 to 20 tries before something tastes good. And maybe your palate is not mature enough to appreciate the food right now. Well, that was fighting words, you know. So he took up the asparagus and he dipped it in and he ate it. And he said, I think this is the 7th try. I think I like it now.
That's so great. Oh my gosh, I love that story. That's kind of like reverse psychology, I think.
Yeah, give them a challenge. You know, the French children are given a 3-course meal in school, and you can't bring other food to the school. The children have to eat this. It's part of their national heritage and cuisine. They treasure it, you know. And so there was a book by Karen Le Bion, who was married to a French man, and they were living in Canada, and she had 2 picky eating daughters, and they were going to France because he got an assignment there. And she writes about it. And she says, initially she was saying, could I please give them some snacks so you can make sure I'm afraid they won't eat. And the teachers assured her they will eat. They will eat. So she would drive to pick up her kids with a car loaded with snacks because she was fearful the kids would have starved all day. It turns out they got converted. Their taste buds slowly got accommodating to those flavors of the French cuisine. And when they came back to Canada, I think they had a big shift in their reality because they realized the food was so much better when they were eating it in school.
Well, this is bringing up one of my first experiences with asparagus was horrendous. It came out of a can.
Oh, bad.
It was so bad. And I was like, who would ever eat such a thing? This is like the worst thing ever. But that changed when I went on a holiday with my family, and we went to a really nice restaurant with a properly prepared dish of asparagus, and it blew my mind. I mean, it was day and night. So how important is it to make our food taste good?
Well, for sure. And that's the other thing. If the child is refusing a puree, then make it otherwise, but have a repertoire. I must say I know there are lots of things have changed since I was growing up. The food supply has changed. Mm-hmm. It's very seductive, and also it seems to cost less, but it really doesn't. But parents are now both working out of the home, and home ec disappeared from the school curriculum in the 1970s. They don't have maybe the skill set or time or patience to devote to spending a lot of effort in the food direction and food scene for their children. But I do think it's worth it, and the more you can engage them early on, it'll save time. You can have them help you. So batch cooking on the weekend and have them help in the kitchen making the salad, tearing up the lettuce, and maybe even chopping some of the ingredients. But it's so important if we can get the quality of the food so the children's taste buds are awakened to what really good food is. And they set a high bar for their standard of eating, and they won't want the other food that's of poor quality. It's hyper palatable, ultra-processed food that we're now being tempted by with the food industry. And they're not in the business of health. They're in the business of selling you food to which you will be addicted and eat a lot of.
Indeed. So our society has been, I want to say, hypnotized, or we were put under a spell. Seduced. I feel like we've been, like a wizard is deceiving us. So helping support the parents to bring in simple whole foods. And I like the part when you shared about some kids don't like to have all their foods together. A family member was talking about, he had a friend called One Food Tony because he only liked to eat one food at a time. And that kind of makes sense. Mm-hmm. So ways that you can really support your child in developing a healthy palate. Now, when kids are what's happening when kids are completely eating all the white processed foods, like the white bread and the milks, like the cheese and the milk, and isn't that creating some sort of a addictive
the mac and cheese kids.
The mac and cheese kids.
Yeah. Well, they're the caseo and gluteomorphins in those foods, which contribute to the addictive qualities they have. Also, it's a texture issue. A lot of kids don't like sharp things in their mouths. So soft foods that are easy, palatable, although they may be causing digestive disorders, they still love them. We often love the thing to which we're addicted. There are specialists in that area for children with special needs, which, by the way, the picky eating is like 5 times more common in the community. You have to rule out medical issues like allergies and maybe intestinal inflammation and other things. And parents should always be calm around food. There should not be anything, you have to eat, that type of energy around eating, because it is not the rest and digest mode that we want to be in. I think parents need to look in this community specifically, but also with others, the tactility issues, like what feels uncomfortable in the mouth. That doesn't feel good. Well, let's try some other way of doing it, and engage the child in helping find the way. The more they participate, the less likely they will reject the result. Children eat out of gardens and out of the school lunch yard or the edible schoolyard, more likely away from their home, simply because they're given choice and they're participating in making the soup after they've harvested the produce. Have do-it-yourself meals, like, you put together your own salad or soup or pizza or taco, and then offer as much choice among that as possible. If they have a favorite snack, find a way to make it with real ingredients. And there are lots of recipes available in books for children, especially for children. The Nourishing Traditions cookbook and also the Nourishing Traditions book on baby and toddler care have recipes that you can make that are healthier versions of favorite processed foods. And try to avoid that bribing, because I mentioned it does backfire.
Right, the bribing and that. Let's see. When I was a kid, it was the Clean Plate Club. My grandpa would always be like, "Let's be part of the Clean Plate Club." I think that's frowned upon now, right? Because you were talking about before, we want our children to manage their intake.
We want them to learn to portion on their own and register satiety and hunger on their own, not somebody else externally telling them, you have to eat all of this. Well, I didn't put it on my plate, Mom, so why should I have to eat all of this?
Right.
It doesn't seem fair.
100%.
So again, the choice. How can you introduce and insert choice into taking healthy foods and putting them in your child's body? And I have to just keep coming back to that, because we're of the whole food model, that this is their bodies for life. And it's an insurance policy for them to be able to grow up and be healthy and strong and live a long life and maybe reproduce and so on. And that vital responsibility has been abnegated to, for whatever reason, to commercials on the Saturday morning cartoons. But would we say, oh, you don't need to use your seatbelt or you don't need to brush your teeth? No, we wouldn't for that, but for whatever reason, maybe it's because it's so complicated and we're so frustrated on our own or short on time that we let others decide what foods our children will eat. I think it's the wrong model, because the messages are, you can feed them anything, just get calories in, and we know the calories are not equal.
100%, I agree. And they advertise to the kids, and then it's almost like a sort of peer pressure that you want to fit in. Even parents, some companies are making like a better version of, let's say, Lunchables.
Yeah, those horrible things.
But It's not much of an improvement. I looked at the ingredients. I'm like, maybe it's a little better, but it gives that message that it's cheap. And then it says to yourself, like, you're cheap. You're not worth it. I always want kids to know, like, you're worth eating this really good food. And like you said, setting them up for a lifetime. Because I'm sure you've had people who didn't have, for whatever reason. And again, we don't want to shame the parents out there at all. Everyone's doing the best they can. That's why we're having this conversation.
They are doing the best they can. I'm really, really wishing that we had more support for them to do what they know they want to do, but just don't have the time and resources to do it.
It's really true. Like in the education that they're getting in schools, I'm really big into childhood nutrition education, and I don't think they're getting well-balanced information at schools. The parents don't have that. It's a mess. It really is. But these are really fantastic tips, like really practical things that people can implement. So whatever stage you're at, if your kids are even 7, 8, 10, 12, teenagers, there's no short reason to start really getting excited about healthy quality foods.
Mm-hmm. Well, the things that I was going to say that seem to have changed since I grew up were just the fact that we have two things happening. Both parents aren't at home, or one parent is not home caring for the children, which is an important job, but it's not been valued. More and more, I think children are leaving or are left on their own to make choices about after school and also how they feed themselves, especially if parents are very busy. And I understand that. Right. I'm not sure all the solutions to get them back to helping them eat their best, and it is complex as the children, especially with special needs, are making it more complicated for parents to do one size fits all, because it never will be one size fits all. So yeah, I don't know what to say except that when we look at the individual child and try to account for all the variables that might have made them picky, maybe the next child we can do something different. Like if we birthed the child in the cesarean, maybe we could try having a vaginal birth because VBAC is possible. If we didn't breastfeed the first child as long, maybe we can breastfeed the second child longer and eat a really nutrient-dense diet during our pregnancy and during breastfeeding, because we know that there is that communication and the child may be less likely to be picky.
And in those different stages about incorporating all the different flavor profiles and the fermented foods so they get those tastes. So let's see, what are those flavors? We have sugar. We have sweet, salty, sour,
yeah, pungent,
and bitter. Where does umami come into that? Is that pungent?
That comes from fermented foods. Okay, it comes from things like pickled fish, organ meats, for example. Yeah, those are the foods that have a lot of umami in them. It's the sixth sense.
Okay, so there really are 6. So bitter, sweet, sour, pungent.
And bitter. Bitter's at the back of the tongue, which is, if you were to take something in your mouth that was not particularly healthy for you, you have a reflex if you taste it at the back of your throat to get it out of your mouth right away.
Fascinating, right? That's that survival thing.
That's a survival thing, exactly.
Right. So no, but you can't use that as an excuse that kale is not good for you.
True.
Yeah. And okay, I don't know why I'm going to bring this up, but I shouldn't say it, but I had somebody say that kale was a liberal vegetable.
I haven't heard that, but that's funny.
I thought it was hysterical. I was like, really? We shouldn't categorize foods in political stuff. Then we're really in trouble, I have to say.
That's funny. Oh my goodness.
But I love, like eating whole foods, shopping at the farmer's market, bring your kids to the market and make it fun. And another thing, Nori, what you're sharing about is the importance of, sorry, I got a call coming in on my phone because I'm talking to Nori virtually through the cell phones. Now, darn it, now I forgot what I was going to say. Community. The importance of if you have a picky eater who's fussy at home, you might notice when they go to their friend's home and they make dinner, they might be more willing to try new foods. So it's important to create that social environment where we're encouraged and we're trying different cuisines. Look, we're in America. We have so many people from all over the world that live here. You can go to your friends that come from Latin heritages. You can go to your friends with European heritages or East Asia and try all those wonderful food platforms, like Indian food and Chinese food and Japanese food. Like, those are amazing flavors that we get to try. I didn't maybe have experience with that when I was a kid, maybe some Mexican food, But nowadays we have exposure to all those things. So I think that's another important factor is to, to bring these different flavors to your kids and to share in the community.
That's a perfect point. I think also there are the parents who are worried their children won't embrace their neighbors' foods when they go over for dinner, and they bring their own little pack of food for the kids.
Is this true?
They won't eat.
Really?
Yeah.
They do?
And I think, yeah, some do.
Wow.
Just because they don't want the kids to go hungry, or they refuse to go out because they're afraid that the kids will not want to eat what they're being offered. But it's not polite. And it's certainly restrictive socially, but if the children are trained to accept the food and be allowed permission to take one bite to be polite,
right,
and then put it in the napkin if it's not agreeable, but at least they're being polite and they're participating in the family and the society's activity that's so wonderful. Eating together is the best thing we could do.
Oh, I love it. I think that's my childhood experience. Why I probably love food is the cultural and the coming together, and I have so many great memories of that. Well, gosh, Nori Hudson, she's here talking to us, you guys. Holistic board certified nutritionist. Nori, you are a wealth of information. Where can people find you? Can you share your website?
It's radiant-vitality.com.
Okay, so people can find you, and you teach in the communities, right? You have workshops and things that you participate in.
I'm teaching at the Albany Senior Center in California. It's a class called Demystifying Nutrition Controversies. It's every Monday, 3:30 to 5. It's $1 for Albanians, and it's $2 for anybody else per class.
Nice.
And I always serve a snack, so there's a snack fee. But people are enjoying the class because it helps them with whatever health issues they have and controversies they want to have explained. It's a good class.
I love it. Well, you're a gem and such a treasure in our community. And so thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Jill. It's been fun.
It's been great. And hold on the line for a sec. I just want to share with our listeners that I am launching a whole new series of classes for parents in particular, talking about early toddler foods to introduce to your kids, junk food, and the impact that it's having on our children's promoting illnesses. That's a really big one. So please check out my website, Santa Cruz holisticnutrition.com/classes. And the first one's going to be free. It's on my Food Tree Holistic Nutrition Program, where I talk about all different kind of eating styles that can adapt to your family based on all the nutrients that Nori and I are encouraging you to eat. So everyone can create their own special family lifestyle based around food that they enjoy. Also, October 14th, Toddler Foods for Growing Healthy Taste Buds. This is the perfect place to start, guys, with influencing your children so they can become healthy eaters. There is no food really that's off limits to toddlers. So that's going to be a really super fun, interesting, lively class. Please join us. Then on the 21st, kind of picking up on this whole picky eating topic, is picky eating, do's and don'ts for better meal times, followed by the 28th, right before Halloween, healthy holiday treats and sweets. So guys, let's get support. You don't have to do this whole parenting, feeding your kids thing on your own. Work together with other parents. Join us on these very lively, exciting Zoom classes where you can be seen and heard by other parents while learning fascinating information, plus learning practical cooking skills and recipes. I'm also going to be doing demonstrations on foods, snacks, drinks, so it's going to be super fun. It's on Zoom, $12 per session. That is so affordable. And with that, peace out, everybody, and have a wonderful day.